Welcome everyone to the Mastermind Book Club. Today is Tuesday night. Every Tuesday we go over a book that can impact our lives in a positive direction. We are on our fourth book in marketing out of 12 that we plan to cover. In eight more to go. That's about 2 months' time. And these books are immensely improving my lives. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Are they changing your lives as well?
For me, it was powerful.
Good, Martha. Thank you. How about you, Gina? Guess can't speak. Whoops, got bad signal. Bad signal. All right. Well, anyhow, tonight we're reviewing a book called Contagious by Jonah Berger. And Jonah Berger wrote this book as a student going for, I believe, his master's, if I'm not mistaken. He's going for his master's, and he did a lot of research.
But yes,
he didn't know where this book was going to lead him to, but he did a lot of research into marketing, into why things sell, what impacts salesmanship, and these are the main 6 principles of having something go viral. The book itself goes into a lot of details and examples of different stories. And the stories all answer to these 6 principles of virality. But do you really know what they are? You can listen to this book, you can read this book, but sometimes the meaning gets lost in just the storytelling. However, Jonah Berger became so popular that all the big companies, the big politicians, those who rule the world were seeking his advice on how to improve their marketing skills, whether it was reaching to in politics or trying to sell a product or trying to find out why something wasn't selling, although it was very impactful. These are those 6 principles that you need to be able to answer in order to have a better reach. Number 1, social currency. Do any of you know what social currency means? Basically means, if you're on mute, I put you on mute, so if you want to speak, you'd have to unmute yourself, or I can unmute you all, and that way you have a chance to speak.
I'm sorry. I did. I don't know how this is happening because you didn't touch anything.
Say it again. Sorry, Martha.
They talking about word of mouth in the book. Word of mouth, the people talking about how people.
No, we're talking about social currency. What is social currency? Yes. It's social currency is definite. Yes, that's right. It is word of mouth. That's part of it. You're right.
Yeah.
Word of mouth is part of it. And what else would you like to say, Martha?
They connect people to protect each other about discussion about the budget, about the investment, about marketing, and think it's important to get a business together. That's another part of the social currency. By the word of mouth is another part.
Well, so
the word of mouth is when the people going to a place and they really like it. They start word of mouth to friends, to people they know, and oh, this business is great. The attention is great. The prices they're very reasonable. That's word of mouth, and that's where the business increase when people start talking about in positive way about the business. Any business can be a restaurant, can be a store, can be a bakery, things like that.
got it. So we're talking here more about social currency than word of mouth. Word of mouth is one of the aspects to social currency. Obviously, to get the best results, it's word of mouth. But before having word of mouth, you have to have a personal contact, a personal impact, a personal story that relates to whomever it is that you're attempting to reach. And if they don't if you don't build that value to that other person or social group that you're attempting to reach, then there's not going to be any social contact. There's not going to be any word of mouth unless the story that you are attempting to portray can be related in some way back to you. Because some people get lost in the story, in that the story is funny, but it doesn't relate in any way back to you. The story could be impacting, very much relational, but does it impact in any way back to you? Social currency is about word of mouth. It's about one-on-one, the personal context. It's also about having a story that is built so that it impacts others and it brings them back to you, not just necessarily saying a story that's going to run off on its own, but it should be able to relate back to you. And that's the tricky part on this. But it's doable if you know that it exists. Gina or Reggie, would you like to add anything, or is there any, if maybe Reggie wants to put a text message in there, just let me know.
So that's right. I don't know if you can hear
Yep, we
me
hear
because
you,
I
but
know that
your
part is kind of
signal's
crazy.
going in and out, Gina.
But
Go ahead.
yeah, sorry about that. So maybe I won't comment that much. But I think you're saying that to be personable, right?
Correct.
The story should be personable, instead of linking it back to us. So something that's touching to others.
Correct.
Can you
Correct.
hear me?
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
It should be personable and it should relate, a story that has touched your life, but it should be able to touch someone else's and relate back to you. So that's the tricky part, because stories are very good, but if they don't relate back to your whatever your purpose is, then how is it going to benefit?
Correct.
Correct. Correct. So number 2, triggers.
Triggers.
Triggers. Does anyone know what he was referring to? Jonah Berger was referring to in reference to triggers.
I believe that is sending a message to potential customer, potential and new customers, to and I have an idea or a specific event to these people to know the business, what kind of business is that, or what kind of story they have behind. I believe that's the trigger. That was mentioned in the book. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
They can like sending message or potential message to customers, and for special events or advertising, some things like that.
Okay. All right. And triggers, social triggers. There are many social triggers. But how about triggers so that those triggers can relate to your persona, to you? In reference to the virality of triggers, the principle of triggers, we need to look at, whenever we're attempting to impact on someone, there's certain words that will affect people in specific ways. And those words, we need to be aware that they exist and that they can impact someone. However, without going into a practice of attempting to use these words, you're not going to find out. You're not going to know. What are these words? What are these words? So, for example, a true story for me, when my daughter was born, I thought she was going to make it. And when she made it, she was revived within an hour and left in intensive care for 18 days. We were depressed. We thought we had done something wrong. What are the triggers in that? Is there a trigger in that? We were depressed. Maybe we did something wrong. Boy, I felt like that with my children. I'm hoping that someone might say that. Concerned
I don't,
about the progress of my newborn. Maybe I'm hoping that someone might say that. So triggers could be direct or indirect. And that's what Jonah Berger was pointing to. So, for example, there are stories told in real life, right? And these stories have personal triggers, but we're going to review that in number 6.
The
Anything
story.
else? Anyone else want to say anything in reference to this? Any comments? Triggers? Okay. So
when you were saying, I don't know if you can hear me, David. I'm
Yep.
trying not. I'm just
Yep.
listening for the most part.
we hear
Okay.
you.
So you're saying you felt bad. You felt guilt. It sounds like you're saying guilt. Guilt could be a trigger. Is that what you're saying? When your daughter was born, you felt bad that you were responsible. You might have been responsible for it. Is that what you're saying in essence?
It's not that what I'm saying. It's okay. That there are direct and indirect triggers,
Uh huh.
and is the trigger that I'm trying to achieve very specific or is it very general? And I was giving the trigger of how I felt. However, it might impact people differently, meaning it might send a sense of feeling guilty, but I was attempting to send a sense of feeling depressed because of the situation, because I felt I was a fool and guilty.
For me, that's emotion, like what you're talking about now.
Well, that yes, it's a specific type of emotion, but we need to be even more specific and say, just like Gina said, that it's expressing some type of guilt, and that could be a trigger depending on how the story is completely expressed.
Yeah.
Gina, does that answer your question, or am I wrong on that?
No, I think you're on track. I was just saying that when you were saying, when you talked about triggers, it's like you said you're feeling such and such a thing, but then in reality we have a name for that feeling that you have, right? And so that's what I was just kind of like asking you. What it sounds like you're saying, I feel that I'm responsible, so that feeling made you feel bad, you know.
So
So
if correct, that's right. And if you notice that the principle 2 and principle 3 go hand in hand, triggers with emotions.
yeah, I think that's what
Create
Martha
emotion.
was pointing out. Yeah.
And the reality is that when you have a trigger, the majority of times we point to triggers as being emotional. However, we could separate them if we took the time to think about this a little bit more carefully, took the time to research what it is that we need to be more specific on keeping separate from an emotion versus a specific trigger. Although I believe that they go hand in hand. In reference to emotions, what I just said, yes, clearly what Gina's expressed is the truth that as I was expressing about my daughter, yes, I had an emotion. I exhibited a specific emotion, an emotion of guilt, an emotion of, uh, I'd say, of being my fault, of me being the one to blame, and not just guilty, but in the sense of I could have done something more. I could have done something different, and not just guilty in a negative sense, but more looking at is as an emotion that I could have been more active, more positively engaged in order for this not to happen. When you're looking for emotions to evolve in whatever business you're doing, most people will reach out to the try and get people to laugh, try and get people
Yeah.
to remember a memorable moment, a loving moment.
Yeah.
Some people will relate to some type of experience of either uncertainty or certainty. These are the types of emotions that get people, the types of emotions that get people to be attracted to your story.
Yeah.
It could be out of love, right? There, because we all have needs.
Yeah.
The need to be just as Tony Robbins says, the need to be feel certain, the need to feel uncertain, the need to feel love or an attraction. There are a few more needs. I just don't remember them all.
Yeah. I believe the emotion is marketing advertising to catch some kind of people. Depends how the emotion you put in the advertising. Can be happiness, can be angry, can be sadness, can be emotion, can be love, things like that. And
Correct.
in marketing and this
Yes.
position.
Correct. And then something that goes hand in hand with emotions as well is like these principles are moving right. They overlap each other because number 4, as we go into this, there's a story that relates to being public, but it's also an emotional story. And what is it?
Yeah.
What is being public? Number 4, that is important.
I can say that
Go ahead.
a public, there's a public relation agency. It's called PR.
Yes.
There's I have an experience in the restaurant.
Yeah.
The PR in the restaurants is when the restaurant have agency, and the agency present a package to the owner. So because they want to promote the restaurant, they want to increase the value of the restaurant and help it with the get a better customers. Depends on the value the restaurant wants. It's a wants a 2-star restaurant, 3-star restaurant, or regular restaurant. Depends on the choice that the restaurant want to run. And the contract PR. This PR costs between 4,000 and 5,000. And the
Wow.
people say a lot of less money, but for the restaurant to have a PR, I probably right now maybe 6,000. And this PR working with the owner and working with the chef, and they promote to put the restaurants in magazines like Food and Wine, like special events like shop or food network, and then doing they put the restaurant every in New York, in the New York Times every Wednesday is a food section, and that's what the PR is doing. They put in that section in the New York Times what is the restaurant is open, what is the restaurant right now, what type of restaurant in the market they're new, and in the public relations they send them people to check the restaurant, food writer, and they show into the restaurant. They don't know who is the food writing. When they show up, they don't know when they're going to show up, and they ask for a meal. Usually when the food writing coming to a restaurant, they ask for 5 or 4 different type of plates. That's what the people at the restaurant say, probably this is the food writing. All the dishes he ordered, they're all different. And because they want to taste all the food in the restaurant. And then he write, after that, he write in the New York Times about the restaurant. And that's what they get the restaurant good review or bad review. And probably it's a good review, they get like a 2-star or 3-star. Restaurant is a bad review. I'm sorry, it's a bad review. They trash the restaurant, and so the restaurant business going down. That's what the PR working in New York City in the restaurant business. That's what I.
That's one specific way to look at the way that the principles of public publicity in reference to virality is, I believe that I believe it's Ruth, but she's not on the call. Gina, would you know anything in reference to public as a principle?
No.
You don't. Okay, got it. In reference to having something go public, I mean, there are many instances of cases that you can utilize these principles, but we're going to look at that on the next page as I turn the page. But I wanted to go through the next two before I go into that public one, because that's the one that I had a little bit more of a challenge of understanding. However, when we see it on the next page, then it becomes a little bit more clearer. Number 5, practical value. Most people who are selling out there, who are marketing, are not building practical value.
Mhm.
Most people who are selling out there are selling for satisfaction of getting a monetary value. They're not attempting to, one, answer a question, two, to build practical value, three, to form a long-term relationship. There's no specific order, but these are the main three. The issue is that when we attempt to sell something to someone, for example, I mean, look right now, everyone's been sold on the idea you have to wear a mask. Do you think that people are still wearing masks on a daily basis? Just in general, everyone. No, there are many people who are against wearing a mask. I'm against wearing a mask, although I wear it in public when I'm around people. Not because I need to, but because of out of respect. All right. Now, why did I say this specific story? Because we're experiencing right now, and we know that when people are told to do something, they're going to do the opposite of what they're being told eventually. Even if at the beginning they might listen, but eventually they're just going to say, screw you, I'm not going to wear a mask. I don't need to wear a mask. Do you understand? So you've got to be careful on building practical value without enforcing a law upon people and saying you need this product, because what they're going to say is, no, I don't. Or, what are you attempting to tell me? So you've got, in order to build value, you've got to find out the story of this other person. You've got to find a way that you can enter into their lives through some practical format. And number 6 is stories. And the most amazing story that comes to my mind, and I believe, I mean, I could be wrong that you've heard of this. You probably haven't heard of this, but maybe you have. Is the story of Subway. There's some guy that was super overweight, and he went to a Subway to eat off his pounds. And sure enough, although in general Subway sells crappy meat and crappy stuff, he found out through their menu that he could eat healthily, a sandwich every single day, twice a day, and he lost, I believe it was 200 or 300 pounds. So he was a size 60 pants, and he became a size 34. Isn't that an amazing story? Could Subway have merited on this story? Yes and no. I mean, I don't. If it became viral, it was not because necessarily of Subway, or maybe it did, because I don't really hear it as much this day and age. I would have attempted to duplicate it, and I don't think they have, or maybe they have, and it just hasn't been viral. Any stories that point to you, to any of you?
Oh,
And I can think about the one McDonald's. Remember the guy who did the opposite? He ate McDonald's every day and he supersized himself.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That is correct. I remember that.
I was thinking that a story is the value, evaluate the marketing and the business for the past. for the story for another business and years in the past. That's what I was thinking he was talking about. They
Say it
evaluate
again, Martha.
marketing
Say it again.
in all business. And catch the story for another business 4 years ago and use the story to market in the new business. You know, it's like an evaluation.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Evaluate the old business and get the stories and evaluate how they open the new business. Getting some ideas related.
Well, in reference to ideas, here are the 6 big ideas, Martha.
Yes.
Here are the 6 big ideas. Number 1, people share things that make them look good to others. This relates to number 1, right? Social currency. People share things that make them look good to others. Number 2, top of mind means tip of the tongue. What does that mean? That whatever's on your mind is usually the first thing that you'll relate to in reference to communicating out there, when we should be, including me, we should be communicating with our hearts, even though that the first thing on our minds is from our brains. Number 3, when we care, we share. If you're not caring, how else are you going to share? How are you going to make it worthwhile for somebody else? And number 4, if something is built to show, it's built to grow. So be certain that you build something to show and not just to keep it hidden away from everyone else. Number 5, people like to pass along practical, useful information. News you can use. In both of these groups, the Mastermind Book Club and in my trading group, my goal is to attempt to provide practical information that is useful for investing. How do I know that I'm achieving it? Sometimes I question myself, even though people reach out to me privately and tell me, thank you for this, thank you, I've made some money, or thank you, I'm holding on, and so on. And that is my goal, is to have useful information and to build value on that information so that eventually I'll be able to create a monetary income off of it. Number 6, information travels under the guise of idle chatter. Information travels under the guise of idle chatter. What's idle chatter? Well, social media is idle chatter.
Yeah.
Texting is idle chatter. And these methods, when they were being developed, were not necessarily looked to being much. They weren't thought to be as powerful as they are today. Who knew that Facebook, you'd be able to sell stuff, you'd be able to talk to people about whatever it is that you want to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Who knew? But this has happened. And that's why Contagious delivers us these ideas that we can incorporate into our marketing scheme. These are the questions that we need to answer on each of the sections of our one-page business plan. This is what this relates to. Are there any questions, ladies, gentlemen? Peanut Gallery?
I think these 6 principles from Jonah Berger is very powerful and very useful, and it's easy to follow.
I believe so,
it's
but
easy to follow.
we need to incorporate them into our one-page marketing plan, because if we don't, then we're not going to merit from what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess you can say also that idle chatter can be powerful. I remember a story when I was can you hear me?
Yeah, say that again.
I said idle chatter can be powerful. You know, it
Yes.
seems just like nothing is going on, but something powerful can come out of it. I use it as an example when I was some time ago. I think it was like 2007, and I was on a forum listening up. You know, some of us were talking on this forum I was living out in the Northern Marianas Islands at the time. And anyway, once it was all finished, then there were a few people who were left, and then we started just talking about any and everything. And then somebody mentioned to me, "Oh, have you heard of The Secret?" And I said, "No," you know. And so anyway, they mentioned, that book that Rhonda Burns had just written, that you can go online and get it for like $4.95. I think that you can download it. And so I went ahead and did that, and that was very interesting occasion for me. I really enjoyed watching the video and some of the things that were said in there, and that came on just from idle chatter, no advertisement, never even heard of it. Just some random person in the chat room said that.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah. And the idle chatter is very important. However, if we don't take the time to think, to meditate, to write things down, how are we going to accomplish this? How are we going to accomplish this? Contagious is a very powerful book, and Jonah Berger wrote 2 other books that are just as important. And I leave it up to you if you're interested in continuing to pursue what this author has written about. By all means, go right ahead. This author has put out 2 other books that are very impactful. One of them is called The Catalyst, and the other one is called Invisible Influence.
Oh, that
In,
sounds
in,
good.
in reference to what we're speaking right here, what Gina just went over, right? Idle chatter, invisible influence, very, very similar. So that's it for our summary of Contagious by Jonah Berger. And I wish you all a fantastic evening. And tomorrow I will post book number 5 on marketing. And the deeper we go into these books, the more powerful information you will receive if you're ready to receive it. Because Jonah Berger, as I was researching on one of the books that we're going to be going over, he was influenced by one of these books. And that's what got him to write this book. And we're going to be going over that book that influenced him. So get ready. Have a great evening. And until next Tuesday, this is Mastermind Book Club signing off. Have a good one.
Thank you.